Attention exhibitors, we're ready to start the hog show here this morning. We're going to start out with the prospect market hog class, and those exhibitors are Cheyenne Obrick and Brayton Scheckinger. These pigs are under the minimum 225-pound market weight to show in the regular class, so they're called a prospect class. Cheyenne Obrick with a pig weighing 177 and Brayton Scheckinger with a pig weighing 224. Please bring those pigs into the ring at this time. All exhibitors that are on the grounds at the fairgrounds today are welcome to have a breakfast here west of the show ring, sponsored by FS. Pancake and sausage breakfast. If you hadn't had breakfast and you're an exhibitor, they have plenty of food and everyone's welcome.
I'm a fair exhibitor, but not for this. Are we in the way?
You're good.
Okay.
First call for lightweight market barrows. First call, lightweight market barrows weighing between 227 and 237 pounds. Exhibitors Cheyenne Obrick, Delaney Gosshorn, Cooper Robinson, Cameron Gosshorn, Nicole Lang, and Riley Scheckinger. If I've called your name, you're in Class 1 lightweight market barrows. And please be getting ready because we're going to soon wrap this up and we'll have you come in the ring.
Well, we got our prospect class to go ahead and start off the day, and I'm happy to be here. We're going to work through them relatively quick while it's cool, and I think we got a really nice class to go ahead and start with. A pair of barrows out here that I think offer some neat pieces and definitely some trade-offs. To me, I guess there's one that wins relatively handily just from a market hog fundamental standpoint. That's the young man's belted barrow. He's going to go ahead and lead off this particular class, and just from the amount of spread and mass he's got up high, he's bigger out of that hip and the way he comes out of his stifle. This one I really like going away. He's dead square, and I really like his flexibility from behind. He maybe gets a little too rigid in his spine for me at times when that young man's not able to get on his head. He raises his spine as he goes, but when he gets to cranking on his head, he presents himself extremely level from the side. One I like an awful lot to go ahead and start this particular class. Got to admire the young lady's Berkshire appearing or Berkshire barrow out here as well. One that patterns up extremely nicely from the side. You got to like that one's build and the way that he gets out and tracks the ring with a relative amount of ease. To me, this one just runs out of gas when you talk about the amount of mass and power that he's got. We've got to open him up from end to end, but a great class of hogs. If you would, please give these exhibitors a round of applause.
First place in the blue is Brayton Scheckinger, and second place in the blue is Cheyenne Obrick. We are now ready for our first class of lightweight market barrows. First class of lightweight market barrows. Let's get those to the ring at this time. Class 1, lightweight market barrows. Cheyenne Obrick, Delaney Gosshorn, Cooper Robinson, Cameron Gosshorn, Nicole Lang, and Riley Checkender. Let's bring those sparrows to the ring at this time. Well, we want to wish everybody a good morning here at the 2021 Shelby County Fair 4-H and FFA Hog Show. Beautiful, cool morning for a hog show. We don't have many people around yet. I know the crowd is going to pick up as the morning goes on, but we do want to welcome our judge today, Mr. Kelly Sheets from Zering, Iowa. Kelly is employed with First McNess Nutrition Company, and Kelly also has show sows and produces show pigs, primarily of the Poland China breed, but there are other breeds that he also runs there at home in Zering. We're really pleased to have Kelly judge our show today. Kelly judges a lot of hog shows throughout the Midwest, and we're really pleased to have him joining us here in Shelby County. Let's show our appreciation. There's not many of us, but let's give our judge a nice round of applause and welcome to Shelby County. Kendra Robinson, please bring your pig to the ring. Kendra Robinson.
We had one not wanting to get out of bed apparently this morning and get up here to the ring. But I think that once that hog got up here, everything kind of fell into place. I think there's a really good pair of barrows up here at the top end of this class. And for me, there's some trade-offs. I guess the one that I like, one that just more proportional in the way that he's put together, and one that you absolutely have to admire for the amount of mass he's got and the squareness he has both coming and going. And then I'd say his biggest advantage over the second place barrow is just how much more comfortable he is in his hip and rear leg construction. And I'm not going to tell you that that one's perfect there, but when that one gets out and goes, I think he's just a bit better in terms of the way he's built from behind than what our second place barrow is. And that doesn't take anything away from him, because I think the front 2/3 of that hog are really, really neat. And the way that he's put together in his topside power, his rib cage, I think the angle of his front shoulder is very good. To me, he just gets a bit more up in his top line. He wants to round out of that hip and get a bit more insecure in the way that he goes from behind. He's one that if he sets down with a bit more authority from behind, I think he's got an opportunity to climb up a spot. But a really good pair of barrows up here near the top. The third place barrow is one that, just from a basic build standpoint, you have to admire. He's one that surfaces in terms of soundness and the way that he's built. He's one that's very good in his pattern. To me, he's just a little bit plainer in his overall shape. He's a little bit more plain in his overall look from the side. If we could extend him out ahead of his blade and make him just a little bit sharper up through that front end, I think that's one that could push up a spot or two. Need to fix him back in through that rear flank as well, and he's blown a node. Like to clean him up, but a really good barrow to fall in through. I think the barrow that struggled to get up here to the ring, once you get him out here and study him in his own right, he's one you have to admire for his functional skeleton. He is extremely sound as he gets out here and tracks the ring. The young lady's fighting him, and I feel bad for her in that regard, and yet when this barrow slows down and gives you a look, he's one that is heavy boned. He's good in his pattern. He's adequate in the amount of shape he's got up high. I think if that one had a better attitude, he might have an opportunity to push up a spot or two. But a really good hog. A lean, good-looking kind of a hog comes out next, and he's one that is just a bit more raw in his overall makeup. We need to give him just a shot more flesh in through that rear rib and flank and make him go with just a bit more security off of either end, but a really good hog. On down the line, we've got a couple structure issues that need to be fixed from behind in the way that they plant and go, but definitely no lack of mass here between these two. A really good class of hogs. If you would, please give those exhibitors a big round of applause.
We are now ready for our second class individual market barrows. Those exhibitors are Kendra Robinson, Riley Obrecht, Cheyenne Obrecht, Braden Finneran, Brooke Gosshorn, Carly Gosshorn, and Nicole Lang. Please bring your barrows to the ring at this time. This is our middleweight division. We only have one class of middleweights. In our class just completed our lightweight market barrel class. We only had one class, and that was our division in the lightweight division. First place and champion lightweight market barrel belonged to Nicole Lane. Second place and reserve champion lightweight barrel belonged to Cheyenne Obrecht. Third place in the blue in that class was Briley Scheckinger. Fourth place in the blue was Kendra Robinson. Fifth place in the blue was Cooper Robinson. Sixth place in the red was Delaney Gosshorn. And seventh place in the red was Cameron Gosshorn. So we are now ready for our second class of market barrows, and this is our middleweight division. One class of middleweights, and those exhibitors again: Kendra Robinson, Riley Obrecht, Cheyenne Obrecht, Braden Finneran, Brooke Gosshorn, Carly Gosshorn, and Nicole Lang. If I called your name, you're in the middleweight division, our second class of market barrels, and let's bring those pigs up to the ring at this time. This is our first class of middleweight. There are two classes of middleweight market barrels today. Two classes of middleweight market barrels. So the winner of this class and the second place pig in this class will remain in the ring while our second class is being conducted, and then we will have our drive for champion and reserve champion middleweight market barrels.
Is it about their turn?
And somebody turned the heat up on this one. I think we've got 4 outstanding barrows, and unfortunately, or I guess fortunately for me, the Duroc barrow in 4th broke down. Otherwise, I think the top 4 would have become extremely challenging. And I apologize for taking a little longer on the top 3 here, but I think all 3 of these hogs deserve a proper evaluation, number 1. And on top of that, as I sorted through them, you can make a case for any one of these 3 being first place in this particular drive. I guess for me, it's just personal preference. I like the young lady's bigger scaled, bigger outline barrow to go ahead and start this class. And I think this one's maturity is working on his side. I think this one's bigger outline, a more extended kind of a barrow. He is ultra shapely down his top and out through his hip and rump. He's one that you have to admire for the way that he's constructed ahead of his blade. I would like to see him tie in a little better there where his neck and shoulder hook up, but I think that's being awfully critical on one that is extremely fresh in his appearance. He's big in his top. He's big in his hip and rump. I think that one is just a really good place to go ahead and start. That doesn't take anything away from this young lady's barrow here in 2nd. I think that weight is definitely not on that one's side when you compare it to the one right ahead of it. When you talk about balance and proportions, presentation, skin and hair is in fantastic shape. Maybe get a little hard on this one. He's just a little more fragile about his jawline. He's a bit more refined in his foot and bone size. And I'd like to correct that one just as he goes directly away from me. He's a little more insecure in his hock placement. If we could square that thing up and give him a bit more authority as he tracks directly away from you, I think that one leapfrogs him and jumps into first relatively quick in my mind. The barrow that comes out in 3 is one that the front 2/3 of this hog I absolutely love, and I think that this one reads dense in his skull. He's stout in his foot and bone. He's one that reads to be the he-man of the class, and yet when you study that one in his hip and hind leg construction, I'd like to see him be just a bit more comfortable there. He is one that has plenty of dimension on the top side of his skeleton. He's one that's good in and through his center body. To me, we just got to make that one a little better in his rear construction as well to get any higher. Really disappointed in how this class shook out for this young man's red barrow, because when he hit the ring and he got this one's head elevated, I thought, oh man, here we go. This is the one I'm going to go ahead and use. And as the drive wore on, I think there's holes that start to show themselves in this barrow. He's a bit more rolled open in his shoulder, and you can see that. It gives him a great big chest floor, and yet that one doesn't use his front leg construction quite right. He's a little more upright in the angle of his shoulder. He's a little more round in his hock shape. He's one we need to square up off either end to get any higher in this particular drive, and I think that's where this one has an advantage. I do think he's squarer both coming and going than what the red barrow is, and yet he's just a bit more rigid in his movement. He's a bit more upright in his shoulder angle. He's quite a bit plainer in the top side of his skeleton in terms of shape. You gotta love that one's flesh though. You gotta love the way that young lady presents that one. Another really good barrow to come in 5th in this particular drive. Both barrows in 6 and 7 I think are ones that you have to admire for the amount of center body they've got. Very practical looking pigs that have done extremely well on feed. In this class, they just ran into a buzzsaw. A very good class of hogs. If you would, please give all those exhibitors a big round of applause.
Okay, we're ready for Class 2 market barrows in the middleweight division. Braden Finneran, Rise Anderson, Leif Larson, Nicole Hansen, Macy Gosshorn, Brooke Gosshorn, and Riley Kinkle. Reese Anderson and Leif Larson. So there are a total of 7 pigs in our 2nd class in the middleweight division. So the results of Class 1 in the middleweight market barrels. We had first place and a purple goes to Brooke Gosshorn. 2nd place in a purple to Riley Obrick. 3rd place in a purple to Cheyenne Obrick. 4th place in a purple to Braden Finneran. 5th place and a blue goes to Nicole Lang. 6th place in the blue to Kendra Robinson. And 7th place in the blue to Carly Gosshorn. At the conclusion of our second class of middleweight market barrels, we will have a drive for our champion and reserve champion middleweight market barrel. So we will hold the 2 top picks in this class and we'll go right into our champion and reserve champion.
Well, another good class, but I don't think it's much decision up here on the top end. I think this young lady's belted barrel here in front of me wins and does so relatively quickly. I think that one is exceptional in the way he's built from the side. I haven't seen a lot of them that are put together like that, especially ahead of the blade. I mean, you want to talk about one that is an absolute rocket-fronted one ahead of his blade, and still, when they look like that, usually they're frail and narrow and flat, and ones that just typically don't match up with the rest of the class in terms of the amount of mass that they're able to possess. And yet I think that one is more than adequate in what he has up high. He's big about his center body and extremely fresh. He's one that's comfortable out here. I would like to see him catch a gear and go just with a bit more speed, and yet I think that one wins and does so very, very quickly. That doesn't take anything away from the young lady Spotted Hog out in the middle of the ring, because I do think that one, in terms of his build and proportions, you have to admire. He's maybe a bit crestier, a bit more mature on the top side of his neck. I'd like to drive that chine bone down between his blades just a little bit more and make him a bit cuter up ahead of his blade. And yet, when you talk about one that matches just matches our class winner in terms of the way that he's presented, I think one that you have to run him up the line quite a ways, and then you study the parts and pieces and what he is. I would like to see him have just a shot more shape up high. That's being pretty clerical on a really good hog to fall in second. I think there's some extreme pieces in this black hog that comes out next. He is extremely heavy in his foot and bone. He easily possesses the most amount of mass in class. I mean, there's no doubt that this one has the most meat laid on the top side of his skeleton. He's one you have to admire his proportions. He is a bit more modern in his frame size, and yet this one just comes in a few more pieces that we need to fix. He's not quite as secure on his hind leg as what I'd like to see him. If we can square him up there, I think one that has an opportunity to push up the line. I think build has an advantage here for 4 as that red bear that comes out, and he's one that is more correct in his construction when you study him both from the side and he goes directly away from you, and yet you study him for the overall mass he possesses relative to the black barrel, and I think he just runs out of gas. I think a very good bear to go ahead and fall in 4 nonetheless, and 4 purples on the top end of this class. The young lady's white hog that comes out next kind of gave her fits, and one that just doesn't want to be out here too awful bad, and yet when you study that one from the amount of dimension he has up high, and he pushes out through his his upper hip and rear, I think one that has plenty of dimension, just one that needs to come with just a bit more presentation, a bit more look relative to this class. On down the line, we've got a really raw, very lean hog that we could just use to get just a little more condition on, make him just a hair fresher in his overall appearance. And the young man's hog that rounds out the class is one that just runs out of gas in terms of the amount of power that he possesses, one that you have to admire from the practicality. He looks like he's done very well on the feed, and yeah, we need that one to come with just a bit more punch. A great class of hogs. If you would, please give those exhibitors a big round of applause.
Okay, the results of our second class of middleweight market barrels. First place in the purple to Brooke Gosshorn. Second place in the purple to Nicole Hansen. Third place purple, Macy Gosshorn. Fourth place purple, Braden Federin. Fifth place in the blue to Briley Kinkle, sixth place in the blue to Reese Anderson, and seventh place in the blue to Leif Larson. We are now ready for our selection of our champion and reserve champion middleweight market barrels. In our first class of market barrels, Brooke Gosshorn. Second place in class 1 of middleweights was Riley Olbricht. In our second class 2 middleweight market barrels, first place was Brooke Gosshorn, and second place was Nicole Hansen. So our judge, Kelly Sheets, is now in the process of selecting his champion and reserve champion middleweight market barrels.
Well, I think we have 4 outstanding individuals out here, and I'm not going to stand here and tell you they all fit together perfectly. Definitely some different parts and pieces out here, and yeah, I think there is a pair of barrows when you get them back out here all together that surface relatively quickly in my mind, and what I'll be after today as we go. And I think there's one out here. I probably played my cards too early as we got in through the classes. I think there's one out here that's just head and shoulders above everything else. The young lady that wins the last class will be your champion. The young lady that wins the first class will be your, young man that wins the first class will be your reserve. Congratulations.
Congratulations on the champion and reserve champion middleweight market barrel. Our champion is Brooke Gosshorn, and the reserve champion is Brooke Gosshorn. Congratulations to Brooke, champion and reserve champion, middleweight market barrel. We are now ready for our heavyweight market barrel. We have a scratch. Okay. Okay, we have 8 pigs in our middleweight market barrel class, and we only have our heavyweight market barrel class, and we only have 1 heavyweight class. So the first and second place pigs in this class will be champion and reserve heavyweight. Heavyweight market barrels come to the ring at this time. Heavyweight market barrels: Carly Gosshorn, Reese Anderson, Nicole Hansen, Delaney Gosshorn, Macy Gosshorn, Cameron Gosshorn, Lane Larson, and Cale Gosshorn. Our class heavyweight market barrels, please come to the ring at this time. These barrels weigh between 281 and 302 pounds. Once we have selected our champion and reserve champion heavyweight market barrel, we're going to call for the champion and reserve champion lightweight, the champion and reserve champion middleweight, and we'll pin all those pigs and bring them out one at a time for our selection of grand champion market barrel. At the conclusion of our champion market barrel, we will go into senior showmanship. Senior showmanship will follow the drive for our grand champion market barrel.
Well, not quite as much heat, I guess, up here near the top, but I think a really good pair of barrels nonetheless. In the heavyweight division, I like the young lady spotted barrel to go ahead and start this particular drive. I think just in terms of presentation and proportions and just overall build, I think this one looks like a show pig and wants to be out here. One that you have to admire the way that the young lady gets him presented. He is one that's a little plainer in his overall head and neck carriage compared to some of them we've used earlier today, but one that is good in the amount of dimension and shape he's got up high. He's one that you have to admire in this particular class. The Blue Barrel is one that didn't hit me particularly hard as he came in the class, and yet the longer he's out here and when the young lady gets him presented, I think that one draws up a pretty neat picture from the side. He is one that is proportional and balanced in his look. He's one that when you get up in on top of him, he actually might have more shape than what our class winner does. To me, he's just a little plainer in his overall look and wants to get just a little bit coarser in his overall look through his front third and down through his lower 1/3 relative to our class winner. But I think a really good pair of barrels up here near the top. The barrel in 3 is one that from a build standpoint, I guess presentation standpoint, you have to admire. I think the young lady, when she's able to crank on his head and get him driven, I think one that draws up a really neat silhouette. Where I draw issue with this one is just his front end construction. I think he's too rock forward in the angle of his blade. I think he's a little too closed up in his chest floor. There's just not quite enough hog there relative to the 2 right above him to get any higher in this particular drive. And I think that's where the one that comes in 4th has an advantage. There's definitely more hog here when you get right in on top of him and studying for the basic market hog fundamentals. He is cracked open wider at the top side of his skeleton. There's quite a bit more dimension up there. To me, he's just a little bit coarser and plainer about his head and neck. He's one that wants to get a little bit more wasty and through his lower 1/3. If we could clean him up in those 2 areas, I think maybe he's got a shot to push a little harder up near the top end of his class. Really like the presentation and the build on the barrel that comes out in 5. He's one that from the side you have to admire. You get in on top of him and there's just not enough pig. One that is quite a bit flatter and less shape in his overall muscle pattern. And then when you get in behind him, I don't think he goes to the ground square enough for my liking. I think one that we could fix in those couple areas. On down the line, the barrels in 6 and 7 are very similar in the amount of mass and product that they carry on the top side of their skeleton. Again, just a bit more coarse in their overall look. I'd like to give them just a bit neater look ahead of their blade. And then the barrel that rounds out the class again is a big productive type of hog, one that's very practical in through his center body and has done exceptionally well on feed. And yet to me, this one just needs to come with quite a bit more shape and quite a bit more look to get any higher in this particular drive. They're a great class of hogs. If you would, please give everybody a big round of applause.
Okay, the results of our heavyweight division. Champion heavyweight Market Barrel receiving a purple was Nicole Hansen. Reserve champion heavyweight Market Barrel receiving a purple was Macy Gosshorn. 3rd place in this class was Delaney Gosshorn with the blue. 4th place in class was Cale Gosshorn with the blue. 5th place, Reese Anderson with the blue. 6th place, Cameron Gosshorn with the blue. 7th place, Carly Gosshorn with the blue, and 8th place, Lane Larson with the red. We are now ready for the selection of our grand champion market barrel. So we have the 3 division winners. Is everybody in the ring? Okay, we need our champion lightweight market barrel to come to the ring at this time, Nicole Lang, and our reserve champion lightweight market barrel, Cheyenne Obrecht. We need our champion middleweight barrel belonging to Brooke Gosshorn, and our reserve champion middleweight market barrel belonging to Brooke Gosshorn. We need those pigs to the ring at this time for our selection of our grand champion market barrel. We'll pin all the first and second place pigs as they come in. Okay, we are now ready for the selection of the Grand Champion Market Barrel at the 2021 Shelby County Fair. The Grand Champion Market Barrel will go against the Grand Champion Market Guild later in the day for Supreme Overall Champion Market Hog. And that pig will go on to represent Shelby County at the shootout, the Best in the West, and that will be held up in Crawford County. So the champion lightweight market barrel, as I call your name, please bring your pig out. Champion lightweight market barrel was Nicole Lang. Nicole, drive your pig out. Reserve champion lightweight market barrel was Cheyenne Obrecht, and Cheyenne, drive your pig out. We're going to have all 6 pigs in the ring for our selection. For the middleweight market barrel, or champion middleweight market barrel, belonged to Brooke Gosshorn. Our reserve champion middleweight market barrel also belonged to Brooke Gosshorn. And in our heavyweight division, our champion heavyweight market barrel was Nicole Hansen. Please drive your pig out, Nicole. And our reserve champion heavyweight market barrel was Macy Gosshorn. Macy, please drive your barrel out. So there's our 3 champion division champions and 3 reserve champion division in the market barrel competition. Let's give all of our exhibitors a huge round of applause for a good market barrel drive. Again, our judge today is Mr. Kelly Sheets from Zering, Iowa. Kelly's with First McNess Nutrition Company and also raises show pigs and predominantly Poland Chinas is his breed of choice. He's now selecting our Grand Champion and Reserve Grand Champion market barrel.
Well, if you would, please, one more time, give these 6 exhibitors a big round of applause on a good set of barrels. You know, if you paid much attention when I went through and taught these classes, you probably already have a pretty good idea which one I'm going to run with. I'm not very good at hiding my feelings when I'm on the microphone. And I guess that's okay, especially when there's one out there that's good, and yet I think the others deserve a look, and so I take a little time here in the champion drive to kind of make sure that everything falls into place the way I want it, and yet I think when you get out here and get them all back up against each other, I know that when you think back to the classes, I think we've got the best 6 out here relative to their classes, and yet for me there's one that's just so good and just so neat and unique in the way that one's constructed. Your champion middleweight is going to be your grand in this particular drive. It got quite a bit closer for me between a pair of them for reserve, and I guess when you think back to those particular divisions and presentation and just the way that those are put together, I think to me there's one that kind of fits the mold second best in my opinion, and ones that I think are both very good. If you like them the other way, that's fine. I understand. I guess for me the other one that I like second best is the young lady's cheetah colored one. She'll be your reserve. Congratulations.
Congratulations to Brooke Goshorn on her Grand Champion Market Barrel, which was the middleweight champion. Also, congratulations to Nicole Hansen on her Reserve Grand Champion Market Barrel, which was the heavyweight champion barrel. Congratulations to Brooke Goshorn, Nicole Hansen, Grand and Reserve Grand Champion Market Barrels. Okay, we are now ready for senior showmanship. Senior showmanship, please come to the ring at this time. All seniors participating, we need you in the ring.
Hey, give me that help on this side. Give me that help. You ever think you'd get the board to do this? You'll be here until you die, you know?
So just a quick announcement here for senior showmanship. We are going to leave the exit gate open. If your pig exits the ring, please do not come back.
Pressure's on, dude. Never heard that before.
Yep, thank you.
Well, we did lose one, and I apologize to that young lady. I was trying to make it to the microphone before we lost one. I think as a whole, I think this group did fantastic. And typically, I would take a little more time on senior showmanship, especially because I think all 6 of these kids did a fantastic job, and they've done a good job throughout the day. And yet, as we get out here for Champion Drive, hang on here just a second. Okay, so just wanted to confirm I'm picking a champion in reserve, I guess. Quickly here, as we get out here into the Champion Drive, I do think there's a pair of young ladies that have separated themselves, and makes it very easy to get to the microphone. And yet, even though there is a pair, I think there's one that's done such a good job with pace, such a good job with spacing and finding the open spots. And a lot of times in showmanship, I see kids that will try to maintain eye contact almost the whole time. And while you always need to know where the judge is, ring awareness is the most important part, I guess, in my opinion, in knowing where you're at in the ring, when to anticipate the turns with that pig, and using your pig and using your eyes, I guess, to kind of know where you're at and anticipate where to go next. It's not always maintaining eye contact with me. And one thing that I think our champion has done exceptionally well is she hasn't looked at me a whole heck of a lot, and to me that's okay, because I guarantee you she knows exactly where I'm at. The way that she spaces the ring, the way that she anticipates the turns, gets her pigs in the open area, and understands what angles to show me. Young lady out here in the center of the ring is going to be your champion. Congratulations. Young lady in the red shirt will be your reserve. Congratulations to those 2 individuals.
Champion senior showman was Riley Obrick. Congratulations, Riley. And reserve champion senior showman, Nicole Hansen. Congratulations to Nicole. We are now ready for our lightweight market gilt. No, excuse me, prospect. We're now ready for our lightweight prospect market gilt. And those exhibitors are Jalen Peterson, Brayton Scheckinger, and Delaney Gosshorn. Please bring your light prospect gilts to the ring at this time. These pigs range in weight from 186 to 222 pounds. Prospect market gilts. Following the class of prospect gilts, we're going to ask for our class 1, which is our only class of lightweight market gilts. So if you're in class 1 lightweight market gilts, Riley Scheckinger, Riley Obrick, Macy Gosshorn, Nicole Hansen, and Carly Gosshorn will be in class 1 lightweight market gilts. Get those gilts ready because our prospect class will not take long.
What a prospect class out here. I do think we have 3 really good gilts, and it's just a shame that we maybe didn't have a little more time, and I know it becomes kind of challenging for some of these exhibitors, and where the trends have gone in the show pig industry, we've definitely made hogs a lot slower growing, and I think that becomes challenging for some 4-H and FFA members to get hogs to the right weight, given the age restrictions that some fairs have put in, and I don't know if there's one here, but I do know the state fair is January 1st and younger age break on those hogs, and while that should seem like enough time to get a hog over 225 pounds, anymore, the way that we've bred them, they just don't grow like they used to, and so this becomes a little bit challenging, but I do want to commend these exhibitors because even though they are a little lightweight, I think 3 outstanding high-quality individuals. For me, I guess it just comes down to personal preference. I like the young lady's bluegill to go ahead and start this particular drive. I think one that is extremely elevated in her profile. She's one that I love the way she carries her head, and she's quite a bit more dense in her overall foot and bone than what the red-belted gilt is. And one I think that definitely has an advantage in terms of muscle shape and dimension. She is a little bit smaller in her stature. She is one, though, that is cracked open quite a bit wider at her base. A really neat gilt nonetheless. I absolutely love that color pattern. Skin and hair presentation is fantastic as well. And then the young lady's belted gilt that rounds out the class, again, is one that you have to admire from a presentation standpoint. I love how dark that one is and how hairy she is. I love that about her. One that still has plenty of shape and dimension down her top side. Again, we just need to make that one grow a hair better to get any higher. But a really good class of gilts. If you would, please give them a big round of applause.
Okay, in our prospect class, first place in the blue, Delaney Gosshorn. Second place in the blue, Brayton Scheckinger. Third place in the blue to Jalen Peterson. We are now ready for our class of lightweight market gilts. There's only one class of those, and so our first place and second place pigs in class will be champion and reserve champion lightweight market gilt. Lightweight market gilt, let's get them to the ring at this time. Riley Scheckinger, Riley Obrecht, Macy Gosshorn, Nicole Hansen, and Carly Gosshorn. Lightweight market gilts to the ring at this time.
Yeah, well, you said they were hogs. I want to give her a little as long as you got both on the show.
I think a really high quality gilt class to go ahead and start these market gilts, ones that there's a little different type and kind out here between first and second, no doubt, and I think if you like them the other way around, I guess I understand that, and to me I like the young lady's black gilt to go ahead and start it. I think you probably get in behind that one and you say, well, she's just too much. She wants to step outside the plane of her body wall every once in a while, and while I don't think that's probably acceptable, she is squarer in the way that she goes to the ground and what the spotted gilt is, and to me that is more acceptable. To me that one is quite a bit more mature in her overall build, and I guess that doesn't bother me. I think it helps her in terms of her density and stoutness. One that is cracked open extremely wide at the top side of her skeleton. A good rib cage laid in that one, and is undoubtedly presented exceptionally well. I think that one goes ahead and wins relatively handily for me, and yet that doesn't take anything away from the spotted gilt, because I think youthfulness and just overall freshness appearance, definitely have to admire the spot gilt a lot in this particular drive. She needs to hook up just a bit better than where her shoulder and neck hook together. I'd like to blend that a little smoother. Definitely need to make that one square as she goes directly away from me, and yet I really like that one's freshness and center body and just her overall look. I think that pair of gilts surfaced relatively quickly. We run into some issues down 3 through 5, and yet I think the one that comes with the fewest holes to me is in 3, and she's one that is very, very raw in her overall shape and condition. We got to lay a little more fat on that one, especially at this stage of the game. She is very hard and tight in through her forerib and back to her flank. We need to set her down with just a bit more security from behind, and yet I think that one's elevation up front helps lead her to the 3rd hole. The stoutness and jawline and feature of this one definitely is an advantage for her over the one that goes directly ahead of her. And yet I think this one's just a little lower in her stature and the same length of body, and it throws her proportion off. She looks just a bit longer bodied. She doesn't hook up there just quite right in her ham loin hook up. I think a really good gilt though in her own right. And then the gilt that rounds out the class is one you have to admire from a practicality standpoint. There is still plenty of dimension laid on that one. She's just a little plainer and a little lower in her front end. An excellent one to go ahead and fall 5th in this particular drive. If you would, please give them all a big round of applause.
Okay, our champion lightweight market gilt belongs to Riley Obrick, and reserve champion lightweight market gilt to Riley Scheckinger. Congratulations to Riley on their champion and reserve champion lightweight market gilts. Both those gilts received purple ribbons. Our 3rd place market gilt in the lightweight division was a purple ribbon exhibited by Macy Gosshorn. 4th place was the blue, Nicole Hansen. 5th place in the blue to Carly Gosshorn. We are now ready for our 2nd class of market gilts, and this is our one and only middleweight market gilt class. Second class of market gilt, our middleweight gilt division. We need the following exhibitors: Brooke Gosshorn, Brady McKinley, Macy Gosshorn, Carly Gosshorn, Cameron Gosshorn, Briley Kinkle, and Cale Gosshorn. In the middleweight division, these gilts are ranging in weight from 250 to 266 pounds.
a little more challenging class. Definitely some separation between this one and maybe not quite as obvious up near the top end. And yet, I think when you just boil them down, I think there's one that kind of surfaces her way up to the top. But she's maybe not the easiest to look at because of being a red one. I know some people don't particularly care for Durox. Me, I don't mind. I think that one's awfully good in her own right. And when you study her for the parts and pieces relative to this class, I think she's one that has to climb the ladder pretty quickly. I think she's one that's good in her basic build. She's really good in her overall look and proportions. I think this one would do good either way, whether she's a breeding gilt or a market gilt. I think she's one that just is functional in her skeleton. She's good no matter the dimensions she's got up high. She's good in her rib cage, and there's plenty of shape going away. I think one that surfaces relatively quickly. I think the gilt that comes in second is one that you have to admire in terms of the amount of stoutness. She's got great big dense skull on her, and yet that's one thing that works to her disadvantage. She's not quite as neat looking up through her front end as what the red hog is. One that you have to admire for the overall build and bone that she's got. The gilt that comes in 3 is one that just gets a little more compact and a little rounder out of her hip compared to the 2 right above her. I like to see her lengthened and leveled out of her hip just a little bit compared to those 2, and I think that would help her balance up and go with just a bit more ease and comfort. She wants to get up in her top line as she goes. One that I'd like to settle in just a little bit there. I think definitely an advantage in terms of stoutness and dimension here in the 4th place gilt relative to the one right above her, and yet to me that one's not constructed correctly in her hip and hind leg, one that we need to make a bit more secure as she goes directly away from you. And then a one here in 5 that is really good in through her center body, very practical look, one that is functional in her skeleton, got a good hind leg, to me just a little more plain in her overall look. On down the line we've got a gilt that needs to be fixed in her top line, and then the gilt that rounds out the class is one that a big pattern, good hog that's big in her bone work. To me it's just a bit more plain in her overall look and shape. A really good class of gilts nonetheless. If you would please give those exhibitors a big round of applause.
Okay, our class of middleweight gilts. Champion middleweight gilt belonged to Braden Finneran. Reserve champion middleweight gilt to Carly Gosshorn, and both of those gilts received purple ribbons. 3rd place in our middleweight division was Brooke Gosshorn with the blue. 4th place was Cameron Gosshorn with the blue. 5th place was Cale Gosshorn with the blue. 6th place was Macy Gosshorn with the blue. And 7th place, Briley Kinkle with a blue. So we are now ready for our final market gilt class. Okay, our final market gilt class, heavyweight market gilts. There are 4 entries. There are 3 entries. We have those exhibitors are Sydney Nelson, Cale Gosshorn, and Cameron Gosshorn. In our heavyweight division, these gilts range in weight from 271 to 291 pounds. So Sydney Nelson, Cale Gosshorn, and Cameron Gosshorn, please bring your pigs to the ring at this time for our heavyweight market gilt class.
Yeah.
I think a really good class of heavyweight gilts, and definitely some trade-offs between them. I think to me, though, there's one that surfaces relatively quickly. It's young lady's belted gilt out here in the center of the ring. That's the one I'm going to go ahead and lead this particular drive off with. And she's not perfect. I will be the first to admit that. I'd like to level her and lengthen her out of her hip, but I think the front 2/3 of that one is exceptional for a market gilt. So much spread and shape up high, and she's very dense in her bone work, and one that you have to admire from that regard. One that wins this class relatively handily. I think it's quite a bit closer between second and third here, and one that I guess for me just comes in a little more functional package, and one that I like an awful lot. It looks like she could be a brute. I know this is a market hog show, but the young lady's the young man's chromed up barrel here, her gilt in front of me. I'm having a heck of a time. Right here in front of me is going to be second to this particular drive, and she's one that is extremely practical in her look and her function. One that's ultra heavy boned and got a great big dense head on her, and one that stands on a great big column of foot and bone. I think one that could just be a little sharper looking up front to push that first place gilt any harder, but definitely has an advantage in terms of where that hip set and build is. I think an awful good one to go ahead and fall second. The blue gilt that rounds out the class, again, is another one that I like an awful lot in terms of where she's at and the amount of shape she's got up high. She's good and fresh about her center body. To me, that one's just a little plainer and a bit more refined in her bone work. She's quite a bit more fragile there. A really good class of gilts. Let's go ahead and give those exhibitors a big round of applause.
Okay, we had two purples and a blue in our heavyweight division. On our heavyweight champion gilt belonged to Sydney Nelson, and our reserve champion heavyweight gilt belonged to Cale Gosshorn. Cameron Gosshorn was third with the blue. So in our heavyweight division, champion heavyweight Sydney Nelson representing Avoca Hancock Shelby Tenet FFA, and Cale Gosshorn representing the Center Comers. We are now ready for the selection of our Grand Champion Market Gilt. And if I call your name, you need to be in the ring, and we'll pin everybody. Our Champion Lightweight Market Gilt, Riley Obrecht. Our Reserve Champion Lightweight Market Gilt, Briley Scheckinger. Our Champion Middleweight Market Gilt, Braden Finnerman. Our Reserve Champion Middleweight Market Gilt, Carly Gosshorn. Our Champion Heavyweight Market Gilt, Sydney Nelson. And our reserve champion heavyweight market gilt, Cale Gosshorn. We will be selecting the overall Supreme Grand Champion Market Hog as soon as we have selected our Grand Champion Market Gilt. So if you had champion or reserve champion market barrow, you'll need to have that pig getting ready, because as soon as we're done with our Grand and Reserve Grand Champion Market Gilt, we will go right into the Supreme Grand Champion Market and Reserve Supreme Grand Champion Market now. Okay, we are now ready for the selection of our Grand Champion Market Gilt at the 2021 Shelby County Fair. We'll start out with our Champion Lightweight Gilt, and drive that gilt out, please, Riley Obrecht with the Champion Lightweight Market Gilt. Reserve Champion Lightweight Market Gilt, Briley Scheckinger. Go ahead and drive your gilt out, Briley. Our Champion Middleweight Market Gilt was Braden Finneran. Braden, drive your gilt out. And our Reserve Champion Middleweight Market Gilt is Carly Gosshorn. Carly. Our Champion Heavyweight Market Gilt is Sydney Nelson. Sydney driving her gilt out. And our Reserve Champion Heavyweight Market Gilt, Cale Gosshorn. So not as many gilts as we had barrows, but a very good gilt drive here today. Again, our judge today is Mr. Kelly Sheets from Zering, Iowa, and we're very pleased to have Kelly judge our show. He judges a lot of county and state shows, and is also in the show pig business. So he's a very capable judge, and we're very pleased to have Kelly here with us today. So let's give all of our exhibitors, champion and reserve champion, gilts in their respective divisions, a nice round of applause.
Well, I think 6 really good gilts out here. And to echo what Craig said, obviously not as many gilts in the Market Hog Show as there were barrows. And yeah, I think the quality is still really deep. I don't know if there's one that just stands out quite like that one does versus the contemporaries. And yet I think there are 2 outstanding gilts left out here that when you talk about just tying all the things I've talked about all day, just ones that are fresh and good in their look and proportional in their build. They got plenty of dimension on the top of their skeleton, and ones that you really put together a good build and a good hind leg. I preach that, and as a breeder, we try to do that day in and day out, is make one functional in their skeleton while still having the extras. And I think there's 2 gilts out here I like an awful lot. Your champion reserve out of lightweight division will be your champion reserve overall. Thank you.
Okay, our grand champion market gilt, congratulations to Riley Obrick. Our champion lightweight goes on to be grand champion market gilt, and our reserve grand champion market gilt was the reserve champion lightweight belonging to Riley Scheckinger. Congratulations to Riley and Riley. Grand champion or reserve grand champion market gilt. Let's give those girls a nice big round of applause again. We need our grand champion market barrel belonging to Brooke Gosshorn and our reserve grand champion market barrel belonging to Nicole Hansen to come to the ring at this time. Brooke Gosshorn with her grand champion market barrel and Nicole Hansen with her reserve grand champion. Please bring them to the ring. Okay, we are now in the process of driving for the Supreme Grand Champion Market Hog at the 2021 Shelby County Fair. And in the ring at this time is our Grand Champion Market Gilt belonging to Riley Ulrich, our Reserve Grand Champion Market Gilt belonging to Riley Scheckinger, our Grand Champion Market Barrel belonging to Brooke Gosshorn, and our Reserve Grand Champion Market Barrel belonging to Nicole Hansen. So the honor here is the Supreme Grand Champion Market Hog at the Shelby County Fair. This hog will go on to represent Shelby County at the Best in the West shootout to be held in Denison, Iowa.
Well, if you would, please join me in putting your hands together for these 4 exhibitors. You know, I think, again, I've said it a couple times, they're not all the same out here in this champion drive. It's really hard to get a champion drive at any county fair to where all the hogs look the same. It's not quite like at a state fair where you can kind of find a type and kind and latch onto. You just got to find the best of the best and find the ones with the fewest holes, I guess, in my opinion. And if you find a pretty unique one along the way, well, then you're in real good shape. And Craig said something earlier about, one of these hogs making it to the showdown to be able to go on and compete for your county, and I think you're going to be sending an awful good one. Young lady that wins the barrows has got your grant. Congratulations. It got quite a bit closer for me between a pair of them for reserve. Obviously, we've got the gilt and then the barrow that pulls in, the reserve barrow that pulls in for reserve overall contention, and that doesn't take anything away from the spotted gilt. A very good gilt in her own right, and yet I think we've still got two outstanding individuals out here. I think those two fit together relatively well in the way that they pattern up from the side and their just overall look. I think for me, there's another one that kind of fits the mold in terms of what a county fair champion should look like. That champion gilt will be reserved. Congratulations.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. Supreme Grand Champion Market Hog, going on to represent Shelby County at the Best of the West, is Brooke Goshorn. Congratulations to Brooke. And Reserve Grand Champion Market Hog is Riley Obrick. Congratulations to Riley on a Reserve Supreme Champion Market Hog. Brooke and Riley had a good day today in the Market Hog Show. We are now ready. We are now ready for the Intermediate Swine Showman competition. The Intermediate Swine Showman. Those exhibitors are Cheyenne Obricht, Riley Scheckinger, Braden Finneran, Jalen Peterson, Reese Anderson, and Reese Anderson again. She's going to go after it twice. I think that's a misprint in your program.
Luck is in her.
Okay, following our swine showmanship competition here, our intermediate, we will go right into the breeding gilt competition. And we have a total of 3 classes of breeding gilts. 3 classes of breeding gilts.
well, 5 really good exhibitors here in the intermediate showmanship drive, and I think I've gotten the opportunity to watch all of these 5 exhibitors show at least once today, and so I say this a lot at a lot of shows I judge, and I think this is much more than just a class. This is something that starts at home and you work at every single day, and this is just kind of the icing on the cake, is getting to come showcase your talents at the fair or jackpot show or state fair or whatever it may be. It's an ability to show off the work that you've put in throughout the summer and even previous years. I mean, this is kind of a learning project your whole way through, and I was absolutely miserable at showing my first few years. It took a long time to build up enough knowledge to understand the ins and outs of the ring, and so I try to provide a little feedback so that kids can grow and get better every year and continue to make progress forward. But I think we've got 5 outstanding individuals out here. Again, just like the senior drive, I think there's 2 of them that separate themselves from the rest of their contemporaries. To me, it's all about spacing. It doesn't have to be about eye contact. It's about presentation, making sure you're in the right areas, skin and hair, and the prep work that goes into it every single day. Young lady here with the belted barrel in front of me is going to be your reserve, and the young lady with the black-nosed gill will be reserve. You're your champion. You're our reserve. Congratulations to those 2 individuals.
Okay, our champion junior swine showman is Cheyenne Obrick. Congratulations, Cheyenne. Our reserve champion, intermediate swine showman is Cheyenne Obrick. Our reserve champion intermediate swine showman is Reese Anderson. Congratulations to Cheyenne and Reese, our champion, reserve champion, intermediate swine showman. We are now ready for our breeding gilts, Class 1. Class 1 breeding gilt. Those exhibitors are Cheyenne Obricht, Cooper Robinson, Reese Anderson, and Bridie Kinkle. 4 exhibitors in Class 1 breeding gilts. Cheyenne Obricht, Cooper Robinson, Reese Anderson, and Bridie Kinkle.
Well, I think really a fun class here, and I think that's a really nice pair of gilts up here at the top end. I'm sure there's people around ringside that probably like them different, and that's okay with me. I guess the way I line them up is how I'd like to buy them if I were in the market for a crossbred gilt and one that I'm wanting to put back in the sow herd. I think this black-nosed gilt is one that's exceptional in terms of her build and bone work, and to be that good looking and still have that amount of stoutness and density in her skull and good in her bone work. She's square both coming and going. Yeah, she's not the most robust one in this class, and I know that, but to me, she has the pieces that you can't find in a feed bucket or can't always find in a boar. You can find somebody to inject a little bit of power, but you got to start with a good skeleton, and I think that one's got an awful good place to go ahead and start. The young lady's chromed up gilt that comes in second is one that you have to admire from making show bearers. I think the front 2/3 2/3 of that one is exceptional. And if she goes down and gets home and lays down and has a bunch of pigs that look like her from her hip forward, I think that one's going to have a very, very bright future. To me, I'd like to make her just a bit longer and a bit leveler out of that hip. You can kind of see where her top line comes as she goes. She gets a little bit up underneath of herself and wants to get higher in her top line, but I think a really, really good gilt to fall in second nonetheless. The white gilt is one that when you study her relative to the 4th place gilt, it's just really good in terms of her overall basic function and fundamental skeleton. You have to admire this gilt from her functionality and her skeleton. Yeah, she is a little plainer in her look. She's not quite as neat or sexy ahead of her blade, but I think a really good gilt nonetheless, one that will go home and I'm sure perform her duties. To me, this one's just a little bit too terminal in her overall look. For me, in a breeding gilt class, I'd like to see that one just a bit more longer and more feminine in her muscle type. She's very bory about her head, and one that's very masculine about her head and neck, and one that I'd like to make just a shot more feminine to get any higher in this particular class, but a really good class of gilts. If you would, please put your hands together for those exhibitors.
Okay, we had 2 purples and 2 blues. Our first place purple in our first class of breeding gilts was Reese Anderson. Second place in the purple to Cheyenne Obrick. Third place in the blue to Cooper Robinson. And 4th place to Briley Kinkle. We are now ready for the second class of breeding gilts. Those exhibitors are Nicole Hansen, Macy Gosshorn, Braden Finneran, and Sydney Nelson. Brooke Gosshorn's gilt is a scratch. So the weight range in our class 2 of breeding gilts is 261 to 278 pounds. Nicole Hansen, Macy Gosshorn, Braden Finneran, and Sydney Nelson.
Yeah. Lake of the Ozarks, which is in the center of Missouri, about 40 miles south of here. Good place to see all things are there. Yeah. 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 Now let me call. And you're talking to a central dispatch. Just say, I'll just call the hotel and see, make sure that they reserve that space. There you go, honey. Yeah, that's some service. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's good.
There is a pen in the south barn set up for photos, and the newspaper will be there following the hog show. So you can take a card over and you get your picture taken, or all the champions and reserve champions, and anyone else can take a picture of the pig that they want to using that pen in the south barn.
of very, very good classic gilts, and I think it's purple ribbons all the way through, and some very different parts and pieces. And I know I don't have a perfect one out here. I guess the one I'm the most comfortable using is the young lady's chromed up or calico looking gilt out in the center of the ring, and one that I think if you raise her at the point of her shoulder just ever so slightly, I think that one pulls that one together just so much better, and one that helps her balance up exceptionally well. I think that one, you talk about her everywhere else. I think she's heavy in her bone work, she's good in the angles of her skeleton, she's ultra comfortable out here, and she's presented exceptionally well. You get it on top of her, I think there's more than enough to mention there. She's got a good rib cage, she's soft in through her center body, and she's feminine in her look. I think that's the one that I have to go ahead and win with. It got really tough for me between second and third because I like a lot of things about the spot gilt. I love a lot of things about the blue gilt. And to me, I guess what separates them is just readiness today and probably comfort behind. And even though the blue gilt is not perfectly comfortable behind, she does have more range of motion and more ability to go from behind than what our spot gilt is. I don't necessarily care for that one when she goes directly away from me. I think at times she wants to step outside of her body wall. She is starting to wear out, but I think another really good one to go ahead and fall second in this particular drive. The spot gilt is really, really good. You have to admire that one for her breed in terms of where she's at and just overall build and look from the side. She's maybe a little chubby necked and one that the longer she drives wants to get a little more rigid and restricted out of her hip and hind leg. If we could loosen her and make her function there just a little better, I can live with the way she looks up front, but I think you add those things up relative to the blue gilt, she has to go ahead and slot third this particular drive. I like a lot of things about the blue gilt that comes in fourth too. She is elevated at the point of her shoulder. She's good ahead of her blade. To me, that one's just a bit more upright in the angle of her shoulder. She's a bit more refined in her bone work, and she's a little more plainer in her overall look than the three directly above her. Let's go ahead and give all four of those exhibitors a big round of applause, though, if you would, please.
Okay, Class 2 breeding gilts. First place in the purple to Nicole Hansen. Second place in the purple to Macy Goshorn. Third place in the purple to Sydney Nelson. And fourth place in the purple to Braden Finneran. We are now ready for our last class of breeding gilts. Those exhibitors are Delaney Goshorn, Sydney Nelson, Nicole Lang, Brooke Goshorn, and Carly Goshorn. These gilts range in weight from 282 to 313 pounds. Our last and final gilt, or our third and final class of breeding gilts to the ring at this time.
upside down so you can
Well, I think another challenging trio here of gilts at the top end of this class. I think all of them have some trade-offs and some different pieces to latch onto. I think to me there's one though that's the most complete, and yeah, she's not perfect in an area, but I think she's awful good in several others. And you talk about one in terms of build and proportions and balance, one that balances up extremely well, and she's easily the most comfortable out here as she gets out and goes with a great deal of ease and with a little bit of pace. I think that's probably where it separates our first and second place gilt, is one that just goes with more comfort, and she's able to cover more surface in a quicker amount of time. I think the young lady's gilt here in front of me has to go ahead and win. I'd like to make her just a little longer and leveler out of her, not leveler, longer out of her hip. I think that would make her balance up even better, but I think that one's extremely good in the way that she's constructed. That's being really nitpicky on a very good gilt. Really like a lot of pieces about the gilt that comes in second. One that definitely need to make a little softer in through her fore rim and flank. One that at this weight we got to be getting a little bit of maternal body in them, and one that I'm sure was probably a little difficult to feed in her day, as she's probably been pretty hard middle to and yet you talk about that one in terms of density, her width between her eyes, and just the set of foot and bone that she's got. One that you have to admire from a breeding gilt standpoint. There's some pretty unique pieces there. Yes, I would like to soften her just a little bit. I would like her to catch a gear and go, and one that I think falls into second relatively easily. The gilt that comes in 3 definitely has the gear that second place is missing. She gets out and covers a whole bunch of ground really quickly and does it with kind of a bad attitude at times, and yet I think that one is more maternal in through her center body. To me, that one's hip and hind leg function is not good enough to be in second in this particular drive. She's outside her body wall in terms of the plane of motion that she's got. We've got to make that one better and more secure in her hind leg placement. It's a really good gilt nonetheless. Here's the breeding hog of the whole drive, and she's not perfect, I know that, but you talk about some extreme pieces, and one that I'm sure you'll be proud to go out and see out in the sow pens in the future. She's one that's just too easy in her top line, and I'm sure there was a day she was probably quite a bit better there. She's getting heavier in her weight and her condition. She is one that is extreme in the amount of bone that she possesses. That is a big, rugged female with a good hind leg. Need her to just be a little better in her top line to get any higher in this particular drive. The gilt that rounds out the class, again, a big, practical centered kind of one that's got a ton of dimension, a good set of feet and bone on her, but one that's just too plain in her overall look. She's starting to get a little wasty in her lower 1/3 in terms of her condition, but a great set of gilts nonetheless. All purple ribbons. If you would, please give those exhibitors a big round of applause.
The results of our third class of breeding gilts. First place in first place in the purple to Nicole Lang. Second place in the purple to Sydney Nelson. Third place in the purple to Delaney Gosshorn. Fourth place in the purple to Brooke Gosshorn. And fifth place in the purple to Carly Gosshorn. All purples in our class 3 breeding gilts. We are now ready for our Grand Champion and Reserve Grand Champion breeding gilt drive. We need our Class 1 winner, Reese Anderson, and second place out of Class 1, Cheyenne Ulbrich. Class 2 winner, first place to Nicole Hansen. We need your gilt, and second place, Macy Gosshorn. And in the ring we have now our first place out of our third class, Nicole Lang, and our second place, Sydney Nelson. Okay, let's go ahead and drive out. Our winner out of Class 1 in the breeding gilt is Reese Anderson. Reese, drive your gilt out, please. And second place in that class is Cheyenne Obrecht. Go ahead and drive your gilt out, Cheyenne. Out of class 2, our first place gilt belongs to Nicole Hansen, and second place to Macy Gosshorn. Girls, please drive your gilts out. And in our last class of breeding gilts, first place Nicole Lang, and second place to Sydney Nelson. Please bring those gilts out. So we're now in the process of selecting our Grand Champion Breeding Gilt at the 2021 Shelby County Fair. This gilt will go on and represent Shelby County at the Best of the West Shootout at the Crawford County Fairgrounds on August the 4th. Our Grand Champion, Supreme Grand Champion Market Hog belonging to Brooke Gosshorn will represent Shelby County at that same show in the Market Division. And the animal selected here as our grand will be selected to go on to the Best of the West Shootout on August the 4th and represent Shelby County.
Well, I think a really good set of representatives out here, and 6 outstanding gilts, and I'm sure each of these exhibitors, if they don't make it back to their herds, is ones that will probably make it back into somebody's and will get a chance to make the next generation better. And I think there's several of them out here that have the opportunity to make a pretty quantum leap, and one that there's one out here I like a whole bunch, and you know, just in terms of one that's really stout in their feature, you know, really good in their build, and gets out and covers the ring with so much ease. And yeah, she's not the most anywhere, but one that just draws up a really nice picture. I think can make the next generation exceptionally better. And there's one that follows her really well as well. One that just kind of fits together in making show bearers for the next generation even better. If we could fix the one that follows her just in a place, I think an opportunity to have a really killer set up here at the top end. But I think both these gilts are exceptional. Those 2 that go first and second in the first class will be your champion reserve. Congratulations.
Congratulations to Reese Anderson on our Grand Champion Commercial Gilt and Reserve Grand Champion Commercial Gilt, Cheyenne Obrecht. So congratulations, Reese, who will go on to represent Shelby County at the Best of the West Shootout. We are now ready for our Junior Swine Showman competition. Those exhibitors are Macy Gosshorn, Cameron Gosshorn, Carly Gosshorn, Bradley Kinkle, Lane Larson, Leaf Larson, Kendra Robinson, Lane Larson, and Cooper Robinson. If I called your name, you're in the junior competition for showmanship, and let's get your pigs to the ring at this time. Okay, as soon as we're done with the Junior Swine Showman, at the completion of our Junior Swine Showman, Champion and Reserve, we will have the overall Grand and Reserve Grand Champion Swine Showman. The overall Champion and Reserve Grand Champion Swine Showman.
Well, we're starting to get to the end of the show, and these hogs have been in here once or maybe even twice for some of them, so they know the way out, and it can be challenging for these young exhibitors. I mean, there's not a lot of weight out here in these exhibitors trying to push, you know, in some cases a 280, 300 pound hog around is not an easy feat. So Like I talked earlier, it's got a lot to do with the prep work that you put in at home, and even then, even the best laid plans can go awry at sometimes. So just keeping your composure, and even when things aren't going particularly great, I think is a huge key in showmanship, and just maintaining a good temperament, because that pig knows when you're frustrated, and it can feel it, and it gets frustrated pretty quick too. So as we get out here in these juniors again, I think we've got a pair of young ladies that have separated themselves from the rest of the field most of the day, and even though we could deal with a few more looks in terms of spacing and not getting quite so close, or getting a little closer at times, and these hogs are ready to go, and they're not necessarily listening to their exhibitors anymore. But without further ado, I think there's a pair of young ladies that have done a really fantastic job. It's no secret that it's probably not our champion's first rodeo, but the young lady here with the black barrel is going to be your champion. Congratulations to her. And the young lady here with the belted barrel here to my left is going to be reserve. Congratulations.
Okay, our champion junior swine showman, congratulations to Macy Gosshorn, and a reserve champion junior swine showman, congratulations to Kendra Robinson. Congratulations, girls. Let's give them a nice round of applause. All champion and reserve champion in your respective division for swine showman, please come to the ring at this time. Okay, here we go. We're ready for our overall champion and reserve champion swine showman. And Shelby County does a little bit differently than some counties. We have breakdowns of junior, intermediate, and senior, and then they go after each other for overall. So let's recap here. Our champion junior swine showman was Macy Gosshorn. Our reserve champion junior swine showman was Kendra Robinson. Our champion intermediate swine showman was Cheyenne Obrecht. Our reserve champion intermediate swine showman is Reese Anderson. Our champion senior swine showman is Riley Obrecht. And our reserve champion senior swine showman is Nicole Hansen. Let's give all these exhibitors a nice round of applause as they vie for the overall supreme and reserve supreme champion swine showman. Well, our judge, Kelly Sheets, is making his final selection for our overall champion, reserve champion swine showman. I certainly want to thank the people in the ring and people back in the barns and in the alleyways pushing these pigs up and getting our classes in the ring in good timing. We appreciate all the volunteer help with the people in the ring and here at the desk. So let's give all those volunteers a nice round of applause for helping us out and move this show along here this morning. And again, our judge is Mr. Kelly Sheets from Zarian, Iowa. Kelly judges an awful lot of hog shows in a year's time, and we're very grateful to have him come and work our pigs here at the Shelby County Fair. He's done an outstanding job, and I'll turn the mic over to him.
Well, it's really fun to watch these 6 young ladies get out here in the ring and go against each other. And obviously, there's a little bit of experience working in a few of their favor. Obviously, it's a little bit more of a gap here than what we probably want it to be, especially with the way some of these hogs have been performing. But I guess, boys back there, you better pay attention because these 6 girls are whipping your buns here today. And I think it's pretty awesome to watch a couple of these young ladies get out here and go. And I could actually just sit over there on the rail and watch them go all day. Their hogs are not getting worked up. It's pretty methodical to watch them go back and forth across the ring and anticipate when they need to turn and show off those angles. And it's not always a matter of being right in front of me. It's about being in an open gap when I look for you. And I think there's a pair of young ladies that have done an exceptional job, not only in these drives, but throughout the day. And I'm sure that when they loaded the trailer up at home, they weren't expecting to get beat in some classes, and other classes maybe were pleasantly surprised. But one thing's for certain, that all 6 of these exhibitors came to play today, and I appreciate that about them. It's obvious the prep work and the time that's gone in at home. For me, it's just personal preference, and I would pay a lot of money to have a pair of show girls like this on the team, being able to drive hogs like this week in and week out. The young lady here that wins your champion senior drive will be your champion overall, and the young lady back here will be your reserve. Congratulations.
Okay, congratulations to the Obrake girls. Riley is our overall champion swine showman, and Cheyenne is our reserve overall swine showman. Congratulations to Riley and Cheyenne. Big round of applause for the 2 of them on their showmanship champion and reserve champion honors. Okay, we are now ready for pins of 3. Delaney Gosshorn, Braden Finneran, Brooke Gosshorn, Kale Gosshorn, Carly Gosshorn, Macy Gosshorn, Riley Kinko, and Cameron Gosshorn.
That's my favorite pin.
Candy wasn't enough? No pop. No pop.
Okay. Okay, our lightweight division will be Delaney Gosshorn. Delaney, raise your hand. And Braden Finneran. Braden, raise your hand. And Brooke Gosshorn. So the three on the northwest corner are our lightweight division. And the middleweight division will be Cale Gosshorn. Raise your hand, Cale. Carly Gosshorn, do the same. And Macy Gosshorn. Wow, we got them all lined up. Great job, Rachel. And the heavyweight division is Briley Kinkle and Cameron Gosshorn over here. So we'll be selecting a champion and a reserve champion out of each weight division, and then an overall grand champion and reserve grand champion of Panda 3.
So as we go through and talk these, I'll talk each individual class. I know we've got them split in classes. This was kind of the easiest way to go ahead and do it. So I'll talk each individual class, and then after the end, we'll try to pull the class-winning pins out and push them into a corner so I can see the three class winners against each other. But I'll go ahead and talk them. We got the lightweight division down here first, and I think three really good pins and high quality pigs in each of the pins. I've talked to all those hogs individually in the individual live show, so I won't go through and do that. But what we're looking for in the pin of three class really is uniformity, both in terms of weight and carcass merit, and then just uniformity in terms of carcass conformation or body composition as you study them on the foot. And I think there's a pin in here that really exemplifies what you want to look for in a pin of three, and I think the young man's Duroc pin is the one that does it relatively easily, in my opinion. I think those three pigs fit together exceptionally well. If I'm not mistaken, at least two of them are litter mates, and maybe even all three of them, but they go together exceptionally well when you study them all in terms of weight and carcass composition. The way those pigs are put together, I think those three would hang on the rail exceptionally well and merit quite a bit of dollar of end product. I think it got quite a bit closer between second and third for me, and those are both blue ribbon pins nonetheless. I guess for me, I went with higher quality individuals because as we get into them, I think there's two in each pin that fit together exceptionally well, and then there's an oddball out. In the far left pin is the gilt that's the oddball out. We have two outstanding barrows that fit together relatively well. The gilt doesn't fit in there necessarily, and then over here on my right, I guess, we've got a pair that fit together exceptionally well in terms of carcass composition and weight, being the two smaller ones, and then we've got the barrow that's significantly bigger. So that pin doesn't fit together maybe as uniform as what we'd like to see. I guess for me, I went with the higher quality individuals, hogs that did better in the individual show. That'll be your reserve champion lightweight pin over here to my left, and then third place over here to my right. Purple ribbon to the Durocs, and then the other two both get blues. If you would, please give those three exhibitors a big round of applause. As we move into the middleweight division, I think it got quite a bit tougher. I don't know that there's maybe a standout pin like there was in the first class, and yet I do think that there's some very good pins assembled in this particular drive. To me, I thought in terms of carcass merit and fitting together in terms of being the most uniform in their weight, I like the young lady over here to my right to go ahead and win this particular drive. I think those hogs, while they don't fit together perfect, there is a gilt in there that's just a bit lighter weight, I think, than what the two barrows are. I still think in terms of just carcass conformation and quality, I think those three fit together relatively well. Go ahead and win this class pretty handily for me. The pin that comes in second is the one right here in front of me, and I do like those hogs a lot. In terms of carcass conformation, I think those three fit together exceptionally well. I don't know what the spread is on weight. There appears to be a little bit of weight difference between those, and I think that's what keeps them from winning this particular class. If they fit together just a shade better on weight, I think that class, that pin in this particular class has the opportunity to maybe leapfrog into first. But I think two very, very good pins at the top end of this class. The pin that rounds out this particular drive is one that you have to admire the two barrows in that class, the two barrows in that pin. I think they fit together exceptionally well in terms of carcass merit and their overall weight. The gilt in there, I guess, is where I draw a problem. To me, she doesn't quite fit in with those two barrows in terms of carcass conformation and quality. But I do think an excellent set of pigs in their own right. Could just like to see them be a hair more uniform. So if you would, please congratulate those three exhibitors. Then we get over here to the heavyweights, and I think we've got some split between them. There's definitely some differences in terms of weight between the pigs, but we're getting into a heavyweight pin or heavyweight load. And if you talk about overall carcass merit, this is what we're trying to do. We want to get heavyweight pigs to the rail in an even fashion, and I think these two pins do that relatively well. To me, it's just some personal preference. Again, I probably sound like a broken record, but in terms of carcass merit and weight, I think the pin over here to my left fits together a little better in terms of where those pigs are at and their conformation. I think they're very, very good. Congratulations to that young lady. She's going to win the heavyweight division. That doesn't take anything away from the second place pin because I do think there are two very, very good barrows in that pin from a meat quality or excuse me, a carcass quality standpoint. I think those two white barrows fit together exceptionally well. I wish that young lady had another one to fit into that group because I think that would be a runaway in this particular drive. And if that Belgian gilt fit together just a shade better with those two, obviously I think that pin has not only an opportunity to win that class, but go ahead and be your champion overall pin. A very good pin, nonetheless. I'd like to see that gilt fit in just a shade better. If you would please congratulate those two exhibitors as well. We are going to go ahead and let them out. I'm going to evaluate them one more time, and then I'll talk for champion drive. So. Well, the neat part is about having them all out here is being able to just get in and evaluate each individual pin, and there are some differences in types and kinds out here, but again, the show changes a little bit when we get to classes like this. It's no longer about a high quality individual. It's about how good you can put your pin together in terms of both uniformity and weight. I think there's one pin that has done exceptionally well, and again, I mentioned it in the live show. I'm not very good about hiding my cards. I think there's one that fits together so well and just does the things that are both good for this pin of three and both makes sense for the industry, especially where it's gone right now. I mean, the commercial industry is gone Duroc-sired for a reason, and I think you can see that in this pin that wins the lightweight drive. I would like to probably see a little more weight on them relative to the other two pins, and yet I think that's the only thing you can take away from them relative to those other two pins. That will be your champion pin of three. So that does leave the second place out of that class to be able to pull in for reserve contention. And again, I talked that in class. I think there's a gilt in there that doesn't quite fit in terms of uniformity with those other two barrows. And so I guess in my mind, that kind of sorts that out relatively quickly because we do have two pins out here that are pretty uniform in the way that they're put together and the way they're constructed in terms of weight and carcass conformation. For me, it's personal preference, and I think there's a couple great big loin eyes laid in a pair of barrows over there. And ultimately, that's what the goal is of this end product, is to make pork. That young lady will have your reserve champion pin of three. Congratulations.
Okay, congratulations. Our grand champion pin of three is Braden Finneran with his Duroc pin. Congratulations, Braden, grand champion pin of three. Reserve grand champion pin of three is Macy Gosshorn. So let's give Brandon and Macy a nice big round of applause. Well, folks, that concludes the 2021 Shelby County Fair 4-H and FFA Swine Show. Again, our judge today was Kelly Sheets from Zering, Iowa. We appreciate him coming over and doing a good job. We hope to see you all here again next year at the 2022 rendition of the Shelby County Fair 4-H and FFA Swine Show. Good hog show, good kids, a great day. Thank you for coming.